What's on, guys? Jay Hoyt back with you today. Welcome back to Call of Duty Vanguard. We are back here once again for the first CDL major preview this year in the CDL. So we have the OpTic Texas major, and we have some good matches ahead of us. So this is what the bracket looks like right now. Before anyone gets any games played, we're recording this a few days beforehand, so obviously we don't know who's actually going to win any of this. So let's start in the winners bracket, right? So you have Atlanta, you have OpTic, you have all these teams that are just so good. It's gonna be so hard to make some of these, predictions, but we're gonna do our best, right? We're gonna take into account, right, we've only seen 5 matches so far. We actually have one team change to talk about later once we get down to the losers bracket, actually 2, which we'll get to, like I said, later on. But let's start, right? Atlanta FaZe versus the Boston Breach. Now, Boston came out strong. They looked pretty good, but they've kind of fallen off since then, which is not really a surprise, right? I fully expected this team to maybe show up a little bit, make a little bit of noise, but then actually suck after that, right? So I feel like this one's going to be easy for Atlanta. Atlanta is obviously the best team in the game right now. Almost no question about it. There's a couple teams that could fight for that title, which we'll get to later on as well. But Atlanta, I feel like this one, easy 3-0. Send Boston to the losers bracket. So this is a double elimination bracket. It's not the kickoff classic where it was, whatever you want to call that, insanity of a opening tournament. But Atlanta moves on to round 2. Our second matchup is going to feature OpTic Texas versus the Seattle Surge. Now, Seattle is a good team. Like, they've shown up. They've proved that they can be competing at the top with the top teams. But OpTic was on another level. Realistically, this team should be 5-0. If it wasn't for 2 extremely close game 5 round 11s for them, they'd be 5-0 right now, because they started off a little slow. Couple of individual mistakes kind of costed them, and they end up losing, like I said, game 5 round 11 in their first 2 matches. So heartbreaking losses there, but they rebound. They go on a 3-game winning streak, and now they sit at 3-2 after smoking basically the next 3 teams. So I feel like they're in form. I feel like whatever start they had is kind of gone, and now they're back in form. They know what to do to win. Seattle, I feel like they're gonna be, contenders all year long, but I just don't feel like this team is at the top right now. So I'm gonna pick OpTic again, like FaZe. 3-0 moves on, and we get to see this matchup early on in the first major, Atlanta FaZe versus OpTic Texas. Our next matchup, staying in the winners bracket, is going to be the London Royal Ravens versus the Los Angeles Guerrillas. Now, again, London has been a good team. They're, 4-1, I think, overall. They have a 4-1 series count with a 13-7 map count, and they're on a 1-game win streak. So they lost 1, they won 1, so they're back in the win column. But how much of that is, schedule strength? So the best teams are they facing the good teams, or are they just facing the Parises, the New Yorks, the Minnesotas, the Florida? Are they beating those not so good teams, or are they playing good teams? I don't remember who they actually faced. So let's see who London played. So we went to, what is it, COD's Gamepedia, whatever the heck this thing is called. So London faces off against Florida, who's at the bottom. They lose to the LA Guerrillas, so okay, they're sitting in 7th. They beat Minnesota, who's at the bottom. Let's see, Florida's at the bottom. They beat OpTic in that game 5 round 11. Remember that, unfortunately. They beat Seattle, who currently sits in 5th. And then that's all of their games. So they lose to LAG, but they win versus OpTic. I mean, like I said, those OpTic games that was so close that could have gone either way. They probably shouldn't have won it, if you're asking me. I did watch both of them. Probably shouldn't have won that, but they did at the end. They win 3-1 versus Minnesota, 3-2 versus OpTic, 3-1 versus Seattle. I mean, they've played some decent teams, so it's hard to kind of say these guys are bad, but they also beat LAG, right? We did say that. No, they lost to LAG. Ooh, okay. I do feel like London is a better team than that, though. I feel like it. I don't remember who they played first, but I feel like London's going to walk away with this one. Let's go 3-1 in our predictions. Move them on to round 2. Our last matchup of the winners bracket, round 1, is going to be a banger. It's the LA Thieves versus the Toronto Ultra. So we have the LA Thieves, who currently sit 3rd right now in the standings. They had a great start to the year. They're 4-1, only losing to none other than Atlanta FaZe. So they had a pretty good start. Toronto, though, 2-3 on the year so far. Let's go down to their schedule. So they win versus Florida. They win versus the Gorillas. They lose to LA Thieves. They lose versus OpTic, and they lose versus Seattle. So, I mean, OpTic's a good team, obviously. Seattle definitely has the potential to upset. They lose versus LA Thieves, which is a hard matchup. But then they beat LAG and Florida, who they should beat. So, I don't know. This one should be tough. I think, let's go with Toronto. Let's go game 5. Let's feel like this should be a good series. You know, I don't think we're going to have a one-way game or one-way series either way, but it should be a good one. I'm predicting game 5. We'll move Ultra on, and, you know, given LA Thieves' strength, I feel like definitely they can make a loser's bracket run. But let's jump down to the losers bracket round 1. So we have the Boston Breach that dropped down from their loss versus the Florida Mutineers. Now this is where it's like this first round is just hard with some of these teams that I'm just like, right? Because you have Boston, who's number 8, Florida, who's number 9. Boston's on a 3-game losing streak after winning the first 2 games. I mean, I feel like Boston's going to drop down here, and maybe some other team will get better and get up into that top 8. But let's go Boston. I mean, it's like a who could win this one? Who knows? This could go either way. Let's go Boston. I don't know what, 3-1. Yeah, we'll move them on to the second round. Then we have Seattle Surge versus the Paris Legion. So this is going to be one of the teams that is making their first roster change of the year. But the bad part is I don't know how to predict this one because they haven't actually announced their new roster yet. So the team I'm talking about is the Paris Legion. So they released Decimate from the roster, and I don't know if they've announced it yet, but there's been rumors that they're going to be picking up a couple challenger players, or maybe just one. I don't think they've actually announced it. They definitely announced the releasing of Decimate. So Paris has not named a replacement. So as of right now, Paris goes along the lines of John, Temp, and who's the last player? Fellow. So who's going to fill in there? I'm not exactly sure. I believe they are listing their substitute as Theory, who's their coach. If they put him in, this team has no chance. If they bring in a challengers player, maybe they win one game, maybe. But I don't think they're going to do anything. Honestly, like regardless of who they bring into that team, I don't feel like they're going to do much of anything in this tournament at all. I feel like this team needs, like I said before, this team just sucks. And I don't know how to explain it any better than that, but they just suck. Paris, though, I should say Seattle 3-0. I mean, is that just too bold to say? Absolute clear-cut 3-0 domination, move on to the next round? Like, that's what I'm going to go with. Then we move on to the Los Angeles Gorillas versus the Minnesota Rocker. Now, this could go either way, right? Gorillas, who currently sit at 2-3. They're on a 1-game losing streak, just below 500, or I guess even, I should say, on map count. Versus the Minnesota Rocker, who have a similar record, 2-3, with a 9-13 map count. I mean, it's just so hard to say at the beginning of this. Either team could win. Either team could probably 3-0, go game 5. Like, it all depends on how these teams come out and play, what maps they get, what their strengths are on these maps. It all could be completely different. But let's go LAG in this one. Let's go, game 5, round 11, ASIM versus Attach, 1v1 for the chip. or for the win, I should say. We'll move LAG on, and then on to our last matchup of the losers bracket round 1. LA Thieves versus the New York Subliners, and this is the second team we need to talk about. So these Subliners, they have put Neptune on their bench. They did announce their new roster with being royalty in there for Neptune. A lot of people are saying this shouldn't have been done. A lot of people say royalty isn't the problem here. Everyone's like, it's just so many back and forth. He's not the problem. This is the problem. That's the problem. They're not doing this. They suck at that. Who cares? At the end of the day, they put Neptune on the bench. They get royalty in. Royalty hasn't been in the pro league since who knows how long. How's he going to perform? I have no idea. I haven't seen them play. And, of course, going to the first major, making a roster change just before it is going to be hard. I think they actually played with royalty in their last match. I could be wrong about that one, but they may have played one match with him in the pro league. And then you know, going into major one, they're going to have this new roster. So, LA Thieves, though, I mean, they're our third best team right now in the league. I feel like this is going to be a clear-cut 3-0. Maybe with royalty, they'll be able to win a map. Maybe 2, but I don't feel like they're going to win this series. I feel like LA Thieves are going to come in the show, wipe the floor, get off the stage, move on to round 2. Up to winners bracket round 2. We're going to go a little bit faster now. We got the Atlanta FaZe versus OpTic Texas. And we have two of the, I believe, what's going to be our two best teams all year long, or at least in the top 4 all year long. This one should be a good one. Here's the thing, though. OpTic realistically should be 5-0. Plain and simple, they should be 5-0. If OpTic were to win those 2 Game 5 round 11s, they would be, let's see, they would be 3-1. They'd be 6-3, 9-6. When I say 9-6, 12-6, 15-6, which would be just about FaZe's map count. They only would have 1 more map loss if those 2 Game 5 round 11s would have gone their way. Now, Atlanta, they didn't really play the greatest of teams going into their first week. They had Boston, who, like we said, hasn't been much of anything since their first opening 2 wins. They beat LA Thieves, which is their hardest match by far. They beat Minnesota, who hasn't been the greatest of teams. They beat the New York Subliners, who hasn't been playing great at all. And they beat Paris. Now, obviously, we know what Atlanta FaZe is capable of. I know that. But I think OpTic played tougher matches. So they played Boston, they played London, they played Minnesota, they played Paris, and they played Toronto. So I feel like OpTic had a little bit tougher of a schedule, but not by much. So they both played Boston, they both played Minnesota, they both played Paris. So then Toronto and London versus New York. I mean, that's some pretty damn good matches. As far as predictions go, I mean, I could say this one could go either way. It could go any games. It could go Game 5. It could be Game 4. It could be 3-0. Like, this could be any type of matchup. But let's go, since it is the OpTic Texas Major, let's go 3-1 OpTic. Let's put Atlanta down the losers bracket, although they're not going to be, you know, struggling too much down there. That's a little spoiler for you. OpTic's going to move on to winners finals, and we'll have to give them an opponent right here with the London Royal Ravens versus the Toronto Ultra. Now, London, OpTic beat that, or they did not beat them. They lost in the Game 5 round 11. It was online. It probably shouldn't have gone that way. You know, OpTic did make a few mistakes here and there. Just got some lucky timings in that series for sure. I feel it's going to flip the script here for Toronto. Toronto, you know, they proved to be the best team at the kickoff. They did win that event. Although it wasn't much of a victory, it's still something, right? They came out of nowhere, not nowhere. They came out of not really knowing how well this team would do, and they performed really well. So we're going to put it Toronto 3-0. They're going to move on to winners finals versus OpTic Texas to set up a rematch from the Pro League. But let's go down to the losers bracket. Round 2, we're going to have the Boston Breach and the Seattle Surge. This one, I feel like Seattle's a stronger team. Let's go them 3-1. Should be a pretty convincing victory for Seattle if they play how they should be playing. Next matchup, the Battle of LA. This one probably won't be close. I think the LA Thieves are going to wipe the floor with them, honestly. 3-0, LA Thieves move on to round 3. Then we have the round 3. So we have the losers from the round 2 in the winners bracket. We have Atlanta FaZe versus the Seattle Surge. This one I think will be close. Seattle is always that team this year with this new roster that plays these top teams very tough and probably will have a very good chance against FaZe, but I think FaZe will still come out on top this one. Game 5 victory for Atlanta in this one, moving them on to round 4. Our next matchup, London versus LA Thieves. London, good matchup, but I feel like the Thieves are just that much stronger. You know, they're 2-3 in the league right now. I feel like LA Thieves are just a stronger team, so they're going to move on to round 4 versus Atlanta FaZe. And we're going to have our basically top 4 teams left in this one. So OpTic versus Toronto in the winners bracket. OpTic going to win this one 3-1. Move them on to the grand finals of their own major tournament. They're going to have the green wall behind them. The first event truly as OpTic should be. The green wall should be there in full force. Lots of noise. Lots of hype squads, and everything should be going great. Then we have Atlanta FaZe versus LA Thieves in the losers bracket. That one's going to be a banger of a matchup. Let's go game 5. Let's go Atlanta winning that one. Atlanta's going to have to fight for this one as they got some tough teams ahead of them. So final 3, we have OpTic Texas in the winners bracket. In the grand finals, awaiting the winner of our next matchup, Atlanta FaZe versus Toronto Ultra in the elimination bracket final. This one could be a banger as well. You know, these two teams were our top 2 teams last year, and I feel like this one will definitely be a good matchup. But we're going to predict Atlanta goes to the grand final to face off against OpTic Texas, but the green wall is going to hold strong in this one. OpTic Texas is going to win the first major of 2022 this weekend, and I cannot wait to be wearing the OpTic jersey. I gotta get a new one though. I gotta get the new OpTic Texas jersey, that's for sure. But man, that was a long one. Where are we at? Almost 20 minutes. Probably gonna be a lot less for you guys cutting everything out. But I'm very excited to see what's gonna happen in this tournament with all of these great matches. I cannot wait to see what unfolds this weekend at the OpTic Texas Major number 1. But let me know, what are your predictions? What are your thoughts? Who do you think is going to be in the team for Paris? Let me know of your thoughts and comments down below in that comment section if you haven't yet. Or if you're new here, make sure you subscribe. Turn on those post notifications so you never miss an upload. And don't forget, you can always change your mind later. With all that being said, guys, we'll see you next time.